Welcome to today's episode and welcome back to the podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. So today I welcome Bryan to the show. So just quickly going to introduce Bryan. So Bryan Hardy is a certified nutritional practitioner and holistic lifestyle coach. He's been on a mission to help men unlock their vitality since losing his own health in 2010 at the age of 18. With over 15 years of combined experience in nutrition, fitness, biohacking, and inner work, Bryan empowers men to build stronger bodies, clearer minds, and unstoppable energy. Bryan, welcome to the show today. Glad we could make this happen and really like this topic. So excited to chat to you. Be really interesting just to dive into, I mentioned there about your own story of losing your own health, and you shared that with me. Yeah, just be interesting to hear maybe a little bit about that, that's maybe sparked some of your journey into supporting guys with this.
Totally. And yeah, thank you, Johnny. It's great to be here. Excited to dive in. And yeah, to set the context, the only reason why I became obsessed with health was because I lost it. And so to make a long story fairly short and succinct, I was 18 years old, seemingly happy and healthy and doing my thing in university. And I got what I thought was a flu, just felt very off, very ill for a number of days. And that got progressively worse and worse and worse until my insides felt like they were like imploding, like something was seriously wrong. So I went to the hospital and they misdiagnosed me at that first hospital. And so totally missed that my appendix was rupturing in like those few hours that I was there. Went to another hospital after they gave me all kinds of painkillers, shot me up with all kinds of painkillers, and then sent me off. And I went to another hospital the next day, and they did a CT scan and said, "You're a mess. We need to do surgery right now. You might wake up with a colostomy bag attached to your colon, but hopefully it's just your appendix." And luckily it was just the appendix. So they went in, saved my life, really. I would have been dead within probably days if I hadn't had that surgery. And pumped me full of antibiotics, cleaned up the mess as best they could. And there I was, like 2 weeks earlier, seemingly everything's normal, happy, healthy. And then there I am in a hospital bed for 11 days, wasting away and wondering, like, what the heck happened? Like, why did this happen? And I've always been very inquisitive and curious. And so I started asking questions. Why did this happen? How could I have prevented this from happening? And the answers that they gave me were very unsatisfactory. They're like, it's kind of just genetic and it kind of just happens. And there's not really much you could have done about it. So don't worry. That was basically what I heard from the doctors and the nurses. And so that didn't sit well with me. And here I was starting to figure, okay, I'm going to rebuild my digestive system from this point onwards. And I always say, as even though modern medicine kept me alive, like I would not be here without modern medicine. And I love that fact. And I'm very grateful for that fact and for the doctors and the nurses and everybody who allows me to continue existing. I don't take that lightly. And yet they could not teach me how to be well and how to live well and how to eat well and how to prevent future issues from happening. So my recovery process was not very straightforward or smooth. All the antibiotics that I'd been on totally wiped out my gut flora, and I didn't know anything about probiotics or, reintroducing the right bacteria and rebalancing the gut. So I went back to pizza and beer on the weekends and being a university student. And about a year later, that caught up with me, and I had all kinds of digestive issues. Just gassy, bloated, fatigued, just felt heavy all the time, couldn't stay awake in classes. And so that sent me to a naturopath who really kind of blew my mind. And that visit, I think, really changed the trajectory of my life because she introduced me to the power of nutrition as a primary tool for both fixing the situation I was in at that point, which was a very shitty situation, and for creating health in general and using nutrition as like a performance enhancing, I don't want to say drug, but basically as a performance enhancing tool. And so I've been obsessed with nutrition ever since. And I've dealt with a whole whack of other, health issues and challenges since that time,
Mhm.
from depression to anxiety to issues with scar tissue from that initial surgery. Um, but it's put me in a place where, I've had to live it in order to feel good. And so the natural outpouring of that was I wanted to learn, and I wanted to officially learn this stuff and be able to advise others and support others, because clearly there's a lot of people dealing with a lot of health issues, and specifically issues of the gut and the digestive system. And so that's led me to where I am now, which is, working as a coach and a practitioner and working with guys to rebuild that function and rebuild their energy and get them back to a place of feeling their best.
Oh, amazing, Brian. Well, thank you for sharing your journey and just my observation. You seem like a man with really great energy, and yeah, I could sort of like sense that about you. And I've noticed myself in the role in nutrition's had on my energy, and it's even when I've cut out things like alcohol, if I'm still eating sugars, like that's still going to drain my energy. Just cutting out one thing's not it's not going to solve it. Even though alcohol obviously is a big impact on your energy and things like that. But yeah, just like the whole range of foods, and some foods that didn't even think would impact my energy, but then just logging it and becoming aware was just a huge one for me. I want to touch a little bit on what you said. You mentioned about the physical things that were like coming up in your life previously, and going from that university life and then changing the nutrition. You mentioned about depression and anxiety. So thank you for that. I've gone through some challenges myself. I know there's many out there who do. What was the role of nutrition? How did nutrition help or not help with those things?
Yeah, I think it works as like a stabilizing factor.
Mm,
So, and I've seen this with clients. If someone is prone to depressive thinking or episodes, or low energy and fatigue, then eating things that are causing inflammation and not being able to digest and assimilate the essential vitamins and minerals and such that they need to be able to function and to be able to create dopamine and create serotonin and create
mm,
acetylcholine, all the neurotransmitters that facilitate energy and mood. If they're eating and living in a way that's not allowing their body to do that, it's going to be way harder to get out of that state, right? Because there is a biochemical reality to how our bodies work. And we can't, deny that or just positive think our way right through that. Um, and so for me, because I got very deep into nutrition prior to what became, until that point in my life, the worst bouts of anxiety or depression, more so anxiety, I would say, overthinking, rumination, just stuck on like looping on negative past thoughts and stories that I was telling myself. Because I had a foundation, both of nutrition, which includes supplementation, but also of movement practices, spiritual practices, these kind of things. I feel like those things were, because I never fully let go of them. Like even if everything else in my life wasn't working, I would still have the wherewithal to go outside to the park and like do some chin-ups, do some dips, do some push-ups, do some squats, just run around, just get the energy moving. And so it was always there to stabilize my energy, stabilize my mood, and provide that lift, right? The lift that most
mm,
of us know of pre-exercise and then post-exercise, right? I just feel a little bit, more of a glow, a little bit lighter. And certainly um, having a solid diet or having supplements that can help to calm the brain down, right? Magnesium is a big one we talk about and you hear a lot about,
mm,
because if you don't have enough in your body, you are going to be perpetually in a sort of an overactive and over contractive or sympathetic nervous system kind of state. So you're going to be
mm,
prone to being more stressed. Magnesium is like the brakes. It's like the brakes. They call it the relaxation mineral. It does a whole lot in the body, but it definitely helps the body, the nerves, the muscles, the tissues, everything. It helps all those things from a cellular level up into, me as a being, or you and I as men. helps us to relax and to adapt to stress and to recover from stressful episodes, whether that's a hard workout or that's you just got fired, right? And so having those things um, is it's almost like insurance, right? Or like guardrails that help, in my experience, help to limit how deep you might go into those negative spirals and how long you might stay there if you didn't have the nutrition and the cellular energy that nutrition provides. If you didn't have that on board, it's just a lot harder to move through those things.
That's really interesting what you said about magnesium being like the brake to some of that stress response and the sympathetic. I did not know that. Like, obviously, know a lot. Well, not obviously, but I know a bit about that sympathetic nervous system, high activation, breathwork facilitator. So it's kind of learn a little bit about the systems and regulating between them. But I did not realize, even though magnesium is something I take, make sure I get it in, that it was the break for that. So that's I always love learning those like little facts. So no, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned that firsthand when my naturopath prescribed me magnesium. Just before that, my eye had begun twitching. And this was after a night of partying and having way too much beer and just feeling like absolute garbage the next day. And my eye started to twitch.
Oh
And
wow.
it kept twitching until I took some magnesium. And to this day, if I'm too stressed, if I'm too caffeinated, if I'm not getting enough rest and recovery and support, that eye will start to twitch. So it's for me, it's like my little tell if my system needs a bit more support. Um,
Uh,
but yeah, it's definitely essential.
a physical symptom. Oh wow. So what's like you said the term you're naturopath and you're working with a practitioner and that. What is a naturopath or a naturopathic approach for maybe someone who doesn't know?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not a licensed naturopath,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But in at least where I'm from, here in Canada, Ontario is where I was lived most of my life, and so it's different depending where you live. That term will have a different meaning. But here in Canada, it's basically a doctor, someone who's gone to school for as many years as a medical doctor, but who uses a combination of nutrition, Chinese medicine, homeopathy, and lifestyle interventions typically.
Mm.
And there might be a few things that I've missed there. Herbs also very, very big. But yeah, they're having a much more integrative approach when it comes to getting to the root of what's going on and being able
Mm.
to empower their clients instead of make them dependent on drugs or different things like that, to really empower them to make these lifestyle changes and to learn to, you know, um, figure out, okay, what does my body respond best to? What am I missing? What do I need to bring in? Whether it's from a diet perspective, it's from a stress management perspective. And so they, at least in my experience, they have a lot of really good tools that can help us better understand why we're experiencing the symptoms we're experiencing. And then usually they can help guide you down a path that's going to be more natural or integrative in its approach.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Yeah, just like kind of like an all rounder one. Rather than just like, okay, do this to fix that, but there's all these different things as human beings that it could be, and getting to the root cause, it sounds like. No, that's great. So,
Mhm.
want to touch base on another term, biohacking, because it's talked about a little bit. I know Ben Greenfield is the one lots of people talk about in terms of it. So yeah, what's biohacking and how's that been useful for you?
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. I used to joke, I still do to a degree, that I'm a recovering biohacker. And this is something that me and my partner would joke about because when she met me, I was like full on doing all the things. I built my own like infrared red light panel, which I still have actually. It still works great. But I was doing all the things. And there's a way, I see it now as just a way to um, understand our physiology so that we can create the kind of experience, results, difference in our health that we are really aiming for. And it's taking sort of a systems approach. Um, I might share an example of someone who did this very successfully. and sort of how we sprinkled these like biohacking elements into what he was doing. And it doesn't have to be high tech, doesn't have to be fancy or expensive, although it can be all of those things. And it often is portrayed as all of those things. But a client of mine, we'll call him Tim for, anonymity purposes. Although he has shared this and he's allowed me to, put up different stories and things of his experience. But basically, he was in this place of just chronically overworked and stressed, right? He's working like 60 plus hours a week for a big firm based out of Montreal and working all the time, very little time for exercise, very little time for really himself. But at the same time, he had a chronic digestive issue, an autoimmune digestive issue, actually, Crohn's disease. And so he was hurting on the inside and attempting to kind of piece things together and like, no, I know if I avoid this thing and I include this thing and I don't drink too much or I don't, eat too much of that,
Mm.
and I take a cold shower every morning and I do my breath work, like I can function, basically was where he was at. And it wasn't until we got really into the weeds and did a full on gut cleanse and reset for him, also incorporating, smart bouts of exercise. So he didn't have a lot of time. So, okay, he's going to do 10 minutes of high intensity, whatever he can do at home, right? Grab some dumbbells, grab a chin up bar, whatever it is. He's going to use the cold shower, right? For stress management, for energy production, for inflammation reduction. He's going to get light into his eyes early in the day, which has become very popular these days. He's going to make a point of that. And he had, one of these smart rings so we could track his sleep cycles, his movement, his activity, etc. And so what we were doing there, some would say, was biohacking his life to make it more nutritious. We obviously addressed food and supplementation and built that out for him in a personalized way. But so, one might say, oh, you biohacked your life. You're introducing cold, you're introducing light, right, at different times of day. You're doing exercise in these really concentrated bursts instead of, an hour or 90 minutes in the gym. So sort of hacking exercise, you might say. Um, and I mean, for him, it made all the difference because he was able to put this condition, which, doctors will tell you is a lifelong condition. He was able to be symptom free in like 12 weeks, right? And be like, okay, my skin's brighter, my energy is brighter, I'm more confident at work, I'm more confident with women. He got leaner at the time too, which also helped his confidence. And so what one might call biohacking, another person could just call holistic lifestyle transformation. It's kind of the same thing. Um, but that's what it is for me. It comes down to self-empowerment. And
Mm.
whether you do that through technology, or you do that through your food, or you do that through, um, different breath practices, or you do that through jumping in a cold river, right? I don't really care what it is, but all of those things are going to improve your overall resilience and your overall health and vitality. And it's like giving you the keys to the car rather than being dependent on some doctor or some whatever. It's learning that stuff and adding it to your own toolbox, right? So that you can choose, okay, I want to use this tool for this situation, right? I'm going to be traveling. Okay, how am I going to mitigate the stress of being in the air for so long? So many things we can do. Ultimately, a lot of it comes down to reconnecting to sort of natural principles, or mimicking the effects that nature has on our bodies and minds. Um, so yeah, it's a term that's thrown around a lot. I don't love it, but I get it, and that community really has taught me a ton, and I'm super grateful for that, and met some amazing people. Um, but I think at the end of the day, it's kind of overused and not the most useful thing, and it might give people the wrong idea, um,
Mm.
and make it feel like some foreign kind of weird whatever. When it's like, no, we're just trying to, get the most out of our bodies and our brains and our minds and souls and live the best life we can.
Mm. So another term you said it could be known as a holistic life change in different
Yeah,
ways. Yeah.
yeah. Which is
Yeah.
how I experience it now. And it's like, yeah, I don't, whether I'm sitting outside in the sun for 20 minutes on a hot summer's day at afternoon, to maximize the benefits of that, or I'm going into a tanning bed because I'm here in the frozen north, right? It's like I'm getting a similar effect from um, a different stimulus or a different means of getting that.
Mm, powerful. There's a few things we've obviously touched on like today, and for the individual who might be there thinking, oh, I want to make a change in my life. My health could be better mentally and or physically, in both ways. But perhaps what they're hearing right now, what they've researched, what they've looked up online, just seems a little bit overwhelming because there's lots of information out there. What would be your guidance for someone looking to improve their health, um, in that position?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the first thing that I'll just put out there is anyone who's listening to this, if this is really, resonating with you or making you think like, yes, it's time to make a change, just reach out. There'll be ways to connect, reach out,
Mm,
send a message. I'm available, I'm accessible and happy
mm,
to, give a bit more personalized insight for somebody. But in general, for getting started, it's the simple things, right? And it's doing less rather than more, especially if you don't have a lot of practice or a lot of history of whether it's cooking your own food or it's being physically active or it's walking or it's drinking water, right? So if someone like never drinks water, if they wake up, they have coffee or they have an energy drink and then they have, I don't know, a can of pop later in the day, and then they have, alcohol in the evening. If that's your situation, just drink water, right? Introduce a couple liters of water into that, and it's going to do some good. If someone else isn't moving, it's like, okay, just go for a walk for like 15 minutes every morning, right? Or after dinner, whenever it fits. I don't care, but just get it in and
mm,
do that for a week. Do that for 2 weeks, and then think, okay, I've done this for a week. I can manage this. What next do I want to add on? Right?
mm,
Maybe that's cooking more of your own food. And so I'm much more a fan for the general guy out there who feels overwhelmed, feels confused. There's a lot of conflicting information, a lot of conflicting programs and things that are being recommended. For that guy, just pick one or two things that you know are going to be supportive and just do those things. And
mm,
then add another one or two things, right? After a few weeks or a few months, you're going to be making some serious progress. Like I just yesterday had an orientation call with a new client, and all he did from January 1st until now was cut out basically starches. So anything starchy, potatoes, chips, breads, corn, etc. He got rid of those things and he walks for 1 hour a day. And he's dropped 26 pounds in the last like
wow.
30 odd days, right? Um, and as long as he continues, right, and now we're going to build on top of that, obviously, and do a lot more deeper diving. But as long as he continues in that direction, he really can't lose.
Mm,
So I would say don't get overwhelmed. Start with something simple. Of course, reach out for personalized support if you're in a place where that feels like the most useful thing, because again, it's confusing out there. But yeah, less is more in general, I would say.
great tips. Yeah, just starting with something, and the simplicity of making some small changes and then like adding to them as you go. But yeah, I'm definitely with you on the personalized support. I always, in an area where possible, whether it is health or something else, business or something like that, it's always good to get that support, to get the personalized approach as well.
Yeah.
Get more systemized for you personally what you need, because we're all different, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, I love that, Brian. So yeah, Brian, like leave it sort of just sort of wrap up on that note. Where can the listener find you if they want to reach out for maybe more personalized support or check out more of your information, and what you give? And is there a final point you want to leave us with in terms of maybe what we've talked about today, or anything extra you'd like to add?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the invitation. In terms of getting connected, Revitalized Man is my website. That's Revitaliz or Z. If you're in the US, EDMAN, revitalizedman.com. You can go there. I've also put together a free testosterone optimization cheat sheet, which is all the things that I've discovered over years of research. We didn't talk about testosterone specifically, but I've taken a deep dive into that realm and the hormonal realm, which of course impacts mood and confidence and
Mm,
energy, and distilled a lot of that down into here's a bunch of things to do, here's a bunch of things to not do, to move the needle in the right direction. And so they can get that at revitalizedman.com/Johnny, your first name,
yeah.
Jonny. That'll be there for them. And through the website, they can find ways to get in touch, and to connect and or ask questions, or book a free call. So I'm always open to that. To close, I would say don't downplay how much of an impact your health has on every other area of your life. It's
Mm,
easy to think, oh, I'll deal with that later. It's not that important. It's not a big deal. Especially when you're young. If you've never had a health crisis, it's very easy to do that. And just put it off and put it off and put it off. And then you're hit with a crisis, or you're hit with the diagnosis of something, or something breaks. And believe me, it's much, much harder to rebuild after breaking down than it is to fix things proactively and get into a good rhythm way before you need to, or before life forces you to, like it did me, so that you can just make your journey so much smoother and easier. And with that, you'll find that the better you feel, the more you take care of yourself, the more nourished you are, the better you're able to digest your food and eliminate toxins and produce the states and moods and energy and clarity of mind that you want, which comes from piecing all these things together. That then directly benefits your relationships, directly benefits your business, your work, how you're able to show up, how you're able to contribute and to give your best to the people and the places and the projects, and the passions that are most important to you. And so I really see taking care of ourselves in this way as ultimately, it starts off seeming selfish, but it becomes selfless. It becomes
mm,
this you're expanding the well from which you can pour. You're
mm,
expanding your capacity, and everybody who you care about, your wife, your kids, your business partners, your clients, whatever, all of them are going to benefit, and they're all going to get the best version of you if you really invest in yourself and make a point to prioritize this thing we call health.
love it, Brian. Yeah, the knock-on effect to all areas. So it's the foundation for everything. Amazing, Brian. So thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This has been a blast, and I love what you're doing. I love the message that you share, and yeah, so good to drop in.
I appreciate it. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.